Top of the feed. I trust and hope all is well with you and yours, adding value to the volume one episode at a time. This is Academ-ish, and I'm your host, Jeff Halliday. Academ-ish is a production of Tailspin Media. This work is separate from my teaching and contributions to Longwood University. You can listen, watch, like, subscribe, and follow Academ-ish wherever you get your pod on. Remember, when you go to review or comment, treat me like your favorite teacher, pretty please. I would appreciate it. So let's address the elephant in the pod, and that is that I have not dropped an episode in months. It's true, and folks have been asking me, some even politely, and from my heart, I really appreciate you checking in. But back off. No, I'm just kidding. These episodes are really labors of love. I've been busy doing busy things. I mean, you know how life can take over like that. But I want you to know that I'm in it for the long haul. But I actually want to also say that if you pay attention to the front of the show, one of my goals, that value in the volume, is I want to move away from the grist mill that is content creation and also content consumption. We should do these things with intentionality, and that's something that I am going to continue to do, value in the volume. I'm blessed that I'm in a position to do that on my own timetable, but please know that I am committed to growing this thing into doing so together, and I know you're looking for the content. I'll be creating more content and more condensed episodes soon, but that information is for another day. Today, I'm very happy to introduce someone to you that's going to improve your day and I think your perspective on life, and that is the legend that is Clint Wright, or as he's known in these parts here, Dr. Awesome. He has had a really fascinating, well-worn, and yes, a very fun journey to get where he is today with lots of work along the way. And I think you'll get to know and enjoy how he came to embrace the moniker that is Dr. Awesome. What a name. Clint and I are going to talk about theater, teaching, creativity, Farmville, Farm Vegas, things here at Longwood University for all of you diehards out there, Oklahoma, his family, and everything in between. Please enjoy my conversation with Clint Wright, otherwise known as the Dr. Awesome. For those that don't, you, Clint, you have had a long and winding road to get to that seat right there, well earned. I've known you since around 2010 when you moved halfway across the world/country to the thriving metropolis that is Farm Vegas. So for people who don't know you, Clint, give us as best you can, the brief synopsis of the legend that is Clint. It is a fascinating story. I think it's one that you don't mind sharing. I
No.
know more about it than I hope everyone except for your wife, and some of it we can't share here. But you've got a cool past, man, and I'm really proud of you for being in the chair you're in now.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so the sort of, condensed version of that long and winding road. So I'm actually originally from Oklahoma, so coming back here was kind of like coming home in some sense of the word, right? But I went to high school and college in Nebraska, went to high school in Oshkosh, and then I went to Chadron State College in Chadron, Nebraska, where I studied theater. And you know, I had the misconception that I was really good at theater and it would be really easy to be a theater major because when you're in high school in a town of less than 1,000 people, the only thing you have to do to be the star male actor is show up and learn your lines. Like the actual art of acting, no one cares if you can do that. They
I
care if
I
you.
know I know you well enough to know that there's talent there, but go on, go ahead, keep insulting yourself. That's fine.
So I went to college and originally I started studying acting, but I went on what's called an assistantship, and they are different places call them different things, but the scholarship that I received, which is essentially like a three-quarter ride scholarship, was contingent upon me doing hours of work every week in one of our shops. And in my case, I wound up in the scene shop, made some really good friends with, some of our technical theater majors, all of that. And I wound up getting a job in Illinois the summer after my freshman year as the master carpenter for a little theater out in Illinois called the Timberlake Playhouse. That was one of those things that I almost didn't apply for any tech jobs because I didn't get an acting audition at the big conference we went to. I didn't get my paperwork in time, and I almost didn't go to that conference. And one of my professors, his name is Scott Cavan, was like, "Well, what are you going to do if you don't go do this?
Right.
You going to go back
What
and
what are your other plans, sir?
and and he kind of gave me the whole, you came to study theater to work in theater, so go do theater. And so I went, I got the job as the master carpenter, like I said, and I went out to Timberlake, to Mount Carroll, and I had a wild experiential summer. Again, some of those things we can't talk about in a family oriented podcast, but it was a really eye opening experience.
Well,
And
save that for year two. You know what I mean? Save something for next time.
as the master carpenter, I was a crew head, and I was in the shop all the time, and I got to do a lot of really cool stuff. And I also, while I was there, met some real actors who live it day in, day out, and discovered that maybe that's not for me, because there's a lot of work that goes into being an actor, like a lot of very real hard work that goes into being an actor, but none of it's tangible. You can't,
Mm.
take a picture of it and take it home with you and touch it and feel it and see it and all of that. But I really enjoyed my experience working in the scene shop, and so I went back to school, and I shifted to my major, technical theater, and I kind of progressed throughout my college career. I did really well in all of my theater classes. And I went back to Timberlake twice, once as the assistant technical director, and then the third year I went out there, I went as the technical director. So I went from being like sort of the third in command of the shop to being the guy, running the shop and building all of the shows and managing the crews and doing all of the stuff. And that was a really great learning experience. I will say during that time, I did not take my academic work outside of theater very seriously. If you were to look at my transcript from my first run at college, there are exactly two grades on my transcript. There's the there's the grade that is 110%. You can be teaching this class for all of my
Yep.
theater stuff, and then there's all of the other classes, all of my gen eds, things like that, where if I were talking to an admissions counselor, we're not really allowed to use the word we think you are. Here's the number for academic success. You might consider being a tutor. And
Perfect for a podcast called Academ-ish. No problem. No problem.
well, now when I went back, it's different. But
Oh,
so
I know. I
so
know.
I
You
proceeded
you
along
you
that
know that
route.
I've seen this transcript.
So I proceeded along that route. I actually wound up in what should have been my senior year. I got hired on full time as the staff technical director. Sorry about that.
Good.
For Shadron State. I ran the scene shop. I did all of the touring events, all of the music events, everything that came through our venue. I was sort of in charge of, and we also got my wife and I got married that year, and I had sort of the well, I had the worst case of senioritis you've ever heard of, where it was like, well, I've got everything I want. I've got the job I want. I've got a house, a couple of dogs, married, our cars are paid for. Like, what do I need to go to class for? Well, and the answer is you have to go to class, because if you don't, the institution you work for will take that fancy job they gave you away from you. And I remember sitting across from the president of the institution at the time, because she's who actually let me go. Um,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
and she was like, "Look, I've got nothing bad to say about the work you've done. You've done really good work. You just didn't go to class, man." I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." But like I said, we got married, and as does happen with people who get married young, we immediately got pregnant. I say we like I had to do any of the actual work there. But we immediately got pregnant, and so I wound up that summer, instead of going off somewhere, I stayed and was the managing director for the Post Playhouse, which is in Crawford, Nebraska, well, technically Fort Robinson. And while I was there, I met a couple of theater professors from Longwood, and it was kind of a moment of, this baby's gonna come, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I need a job, and because it was a staff position, the the technical director that had just opened up, the position that had just opened up at Longwood, didn't really have a degree requirement. It had like, do you have work?
Right.
And so I applied and wound up getting that job. Uh, dropped out of college 16 credit hours from finishing. Again, on
Mm.
a podcast called Academ-ish, I can tell you from firsthand experience, any student watching this, that is not the route that I would recommend. I mean, like, seriously, don't do that. It's not a good choice. But I did, and we moved to I keep hitting my microphone. I was trying to be fancy.
You're good. I
Uh,
love the microphone. Hit it all you want. No, that's good. No, it's no problem. So
we
yeah.
moved to Virginia, where I was hired on as staff technical director. I was there for a week in October, and we built Eurydice. I was there for a week in November, and we struck Eurydice. Sorry, a week in yeah, and then we moved there. We actually moved into our first house in Farmville on New Year's Eve. We pulled up to the house at like 10:30, and we celebrated by unloading the truck and having Papa John's and Miller High Life because we didn't understand how ABC laws worked, and we couldn't find anywhere that sold champagne.
That's
and
awesome though.
and Papa John's and the Valero gas station were the only things that were open.
It's Farmville's slightly better now, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And so technical director for a couple of years. We at the time, and I believe they still are, the theater department. Well, I should back this up. Theater and comm were one department at that time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so this is a joke that will come up later in the story. I like to make the joke that you've hired me twice because you were on both of my hiring committees. Well, two of the three at Longwood, I guess.
That's right.
Um,
That's right. I don't know if the first one was a committee as much of it was like a lasso, you know. Come
but
with
I did
us.
that for a couple of years. And at the time, and again, I believe they still are, our theater department was externally accredited by an organization called NAST. And NAST came in and they were like, you have this BFA program and all of these things. You should really have your technical director be a faculty position, which is great and was a good choice. But little Mister
However,
No bachelor's degree over here certainly does not qualify to be a
mm,
professor. So I wound up making the shift over to AV and production services. Worked in the Jarman Auditorium and really worked all over campus, but our offices were in Jarman. And I kind of kept doing the same stuff that I had been doing. I was doing lighting and sound, and when we had touring companies come through, I would deal with their tech writers, and I would do all of that. Um, and we built a production studio in the basement of Jarman that was really cool, but I mean, the
it did
video
its
side of
job,
things,
Clint. It did its job.
it did its job, and
Yes.
the video side of things was not really something that I had thought about pursuing at that point, and our campus videographer left, which had been part of IT, and then videography became AV's job, which I mean makes sense.
Sure.
But so like week two of my job was okay, now help us build this studio that you have been not prepped for. Okay.
I got it.
And so we did it worked. We did some really cool stuff. And I did that for 4.5-ish years. And then I wound up actually being on working with Com Studies, uh, being on the hiring committee for the first studio engineer in French. I about lost the
Yep.
name there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good.
And we hired a guy who was a nice guy and all of that. It just didn't work out, which that not working out very much coincided with me realizing that I couldn't keep doing AV forever. My last year in AV, the number of events that I personally had hands on was like 1,300 events. And that wasn't everything we did. That was just the stuff that I personally touched. And you could only work 95 hours a week for $35,000 a year for so long. And
Really? Get out of here.
I'm not trying to throw shade or anything. It's just that was the
Yeah,
reality of it.
that's the
And
reality.
so at the same time that I happened to be looking for a new job, a job
You know,
in
we
comm
had one.
studies
Yep.
appeared, and
Yep.
I'm very grateful that you and Dr. Stouffer and Dr. Johnson and Andrea, was Andrea the other member of my committee?
Sounds right. Sounds right.
Um,
I keep moving.
I sorry, yeah, I'm very glad that you guys give me the opportunity to talk about it.
Your memory is excellent, but yeah, keep it going. You got it.
Yeah, so much for the 2 minutes. Sorry. This is the brief version, though.
Like for anyone listening, this is really brief. This is really brief.
So I shifted over to comm studies, and the position as it was originally stated was sort of just managing the studio and maintaining the things and all of
Right.
that. Um, but I immediately started trying to do more and get involved with students and do things. And at the time the media faculty was just you and Dr. Stouffer, and you guys were very indulgent of my efforts in a way that I had no right to expect, but I am forever grateful that you did. Um, and so we started dropping to Dr. Awesome, and I started mentoring students and working with students and doing things with them. And I will never forget the decision to go back to school, which wound up paying off very well for me. Um, because Naomi was chair at the time, and she
Yep.
came in, and our conversation was super brief. She came in and she sat in the chair across from me. She didn't even really look at me. She goes, "You know, Clint, I can't really force you to go back to school, but I'd really appreciate it if you did." And then she got up and left, and I was like, "Okay, guess I'm going back to school," uh,
Noted.
which wound up working out really well.
Which was her speak for I want to keep you here.
Yes, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
And I may not have internalized it as that at the time,
Right.
but it was a loud and clear message. Hey, you need to do this. So I finished up my bachelor's degree, which wound up being a wild experience in of itself because immediately after finishing my bachelor's degree, um, uh, Ryan and Leah had Aya, and she was 12 weeks early, and there was all of this stuff, and I wound up sort of co-instructing digital media with Ryan, and in that moment, I discovered, hey, I really like teaching.
Yeah, yeah, we always knew you were an educator, man. I mean, you always were, for
I,
sure.
I appreciate that. So I wound up getting my MFA. I did an expedited online program through Full Sail University. My MFA is in media design, and so how that sort of worked out was, I would work my normal day at Longwood, and then I would spend 5 nights a week, an additional 6 to 7 hours sitting in my office, doing all of the coursework and all of the things.
It was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and I will say that my undergraduate transcript aside, my MFA I maintain a 3.97, graduated with honors, so I am capable of being studious. I just it has to have a purpose.
So we keep calling you, and I will forever and always call you Dr. Awesome, but I think we better explain that there, Dr. Awesome. Because
So
you and
yes,
I
my
have a shared point of knowledge in that we do not have PhDs, and
that
I don't
is
want to speak for you, but nor will this guy ever.
that yeah, I have zero intention of going back to school if I don't have to. That is very much true. I actually still have my
Hopefully,
doctorate in
nobody
Boston
walks in your
license.
office and says it'd be really nice if you had a PhD. Oh,
Yeah,
no, I think you were pointing to it. Yeah, I see
yeah,
it.
there it is. I would pull it off the wall, but it's super stuck. Um, So Dr. Awesome started as, I mean, it started as a very like tongue-in-cheek joke because we had a person come through my office before classes started and wanted us to give him students to work on a video project that he was doing. And I mean, I immediately knew that it was not something that our students needed to do or would really be interested in. And so I gave him and that was also, I think that was the first semester. It was either the first or second semester that Com Lab was a thing. And so I gave him the pitch. It's like, oh, we have this client-based class. We don't force students to do anything, but we let them do client-based work. And I'll throw it out there.
Yeah.
No intention of ever doing so. So then, like 4 weeks later, he called Ryan and he was like, I spoke with a Dr. Wright about this. And so
And
then
Brian's like, wait, oh, yes, Dr. Wright.
and so then Dr. Wright became kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke that was really funny right up until it wasn't.
Right.
Uh,
For the people who aren't named Ryan Stouffer who have PhDs, it wasn't as much fun.
and so but that was the first couple episodes of Drop-ins with Dr. Awesome were actually Drop-ins with Dr. Wright,
Mhm.
and Doctor was in quotations, and we had the whole like disclaimer that I'm not a real PhD. I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone who is. But then we, without giving too much away, we did have a student walk in because we all three of us were in that office in French, and a student came in, and Dr. Halliday, Dr. Wright, Stouffer.
That was the last
And
time.
that was when Dr. Wright was no longer funny. I mean, I'm sure it was for some people reasonably so. It was kind of a
God bless Ryan for being in on the joke until that moment. But then we made the joke better.
yeah, and so you guys made me the doctor of awesomeness. Let me see here. The
Yeah.
uh the French G12 Com Studies media faculty hereby, in recognition of distinguished service to a small subset of people for a limited amount of time, bestow upon Clint Wright the Doctor of Awesomeness. And I love that it is signed by you as the head office geek and Dr. Ryan Stouffer, person with an actual PhD. And so Drop Into Dr. Wright became Drop Into Dr. Awesome. And I 100% leaned into it, and I'm still leaning into it now. I know you can't really pick your own nickname, but I do routinely tell students, here, I work in an art department. It's a little less formal than some things. I'm like, you can call me Clint, you can call me, Professor Wright, Mr. Wright, all of that. But if you really want to be my favorite, you'll call me Dr. Awesome. And
That's amazing. That's so great.
yeah, and we did a lot of really cool work. We had, a number of students who were getting Emmys for their work, and it was really, really cool.
It's up to four
Four,
now. Four
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 now.
groups now as of this week. Four.
Fantastic.
Right.
Um, and my first tenure at Longwood ended in October of 2022, because for for lots of reasons, I both am really glad I did this, and I also kind of regret it because
This is a good life lesson for people out there too. You don't have to go into too much detail, but I think it's a
um,
great life lesson.
I really enjoyed what I was doing, but I got offered my, like, when I was in college, I was 19 and I was going through it. I got offered my They actually offered it to me twice. They offered it to me in 2019 and again in 2022, to be the technical director at Florida Studio Theater down in Sarasota, Florida. And like I said, being the resident technical director of a regional theater, I mean, that was the job that I had always kind of wanted when I was younger. And so, and there were some other factors, but that was, and it seemed like everything sort of aligned, and I took the job and I went down there and I worked with some really amazing artists, and we built some really fantastic sets and did some just really cool stuff. But we had 5 venues, and FST is one of only like 3 regional theaters in the entire country that actually operates 52 weeks out of the year.
Mm.
And so in the year that I was there, we did 27 shows in 52 weeks. And the work was amazing, and I really enjoyed the work and all of that. But, and again, I was working with really, really awesome people. But when you're opening a new show every other week, you have to get rid of the show that it's replacing the week before that, which happens on, Saturday and Sunday. And I was, I just was not present as part of my family. And dream job when you don't have any responsibilities to other people, great. And then you get that job, and you realize that it affects how you interact with other people. And I'm not trying to say that there aren't people out there who can make careers in theater work.
Right.
It wasn't working for me and my family, or our
Well,
family.
I share the story for myself, right? When I was doing the dream job as a sports broadcaster
Yeah.
in West Virginia, and Susan learned that she was pregnant with our second child, right? And I'm standing there on the sideline of the Charleston Civic Center, and my like flip phone goes off, right? And then I check it at halftime of this basketball game. I think it was a basketball game, yeah. And Susan left me a voicemail that said, I know I'm not going to see you for another 3 days. So I just figured I'd tell you now that I'm pregnant. And I was like, if I can't be there for this is not worth it for
Not
me.
worth it.
Not
Yeah.
now. So I get it, brother.
Um, and wound up coming back to Longwood, oddly enough, which was a wonderful and heartbreaking thing to do. I actually came back and was the technical director of the theater department again for a year. Um, and again, realizing that I loved teaching, and also that I really missed doing the media side of things. I started looking for instructor positions specifically in digital media. And the job that I have now here at ECU popped up, and it in a moment where I was looking for something, it ticked all of the boxes. You know, ECU is a small rural school. We have about 4,000 students. Um, Maybe not even quite 4,000, but it's a small school, and it's again rural. And the idea of being someone who is, you know, I grew up my entire life until I moved to Farmville. You know, we make jokes about Farmville being a bustling metropolis, but Farmville was the biggest town I had ever lived in when I
It's
moved there. When I
Farm
was
Vegas. It's
Farm
Farm
Vegas,
Vegas, buddy.
sorry.
Farm Vegas. Right.
You know, Farmville was, you know, 5,000 people was the biggest place I had ever lived when I moved there at 23 or 24, however old I was. Um, and I love the idea of showing students who, you know, like a lot of small schools, our students aren't coming here because they got it or because they can afford to go to OU, right? Um, and so coming to a place like ECU where I get to show students that no, you can do cool things and you can do big things and you can do all of these really interesting things really appealed to me. The department I'm in is officially called the Department of Art, Design, and Media and Communication. And so it is a very sort of hybridized department between mass comm and art and graphic design. And so it's a very cross collaborative environment, which with my background in theater really appeals
But
to me.
it fits you to a T.
It ticked all of the boxes. And again, I'm originally from Oklahoma. My grandmother lives an hour and a half from here. Gavin and I, our son, we go camping out on the old family homestead like once a month, you know. So it felt like coming home. And you know, both of our parents, my wife Pam and I, both of our parents are getting older, and so the idea of being closer to them was really appealing. And so what used to be a 3-day drive is now a 1-day drive. It's a hard drive, but it is a 1-day drive, which means they're close enough to go see, but they're still far enough away they won't show up without calling first.
That's always the best distance.
And so I mean, it ticked all of the boxes. I think I saw the application or I saw the posting pop up on higher ed jobs at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and by 12:30 I had, you know, mailed my transcript and like done all of the application and got it out
Awesome.
there.
I'm obviously incredibly happy for you and for the Wright family that you guys are there. I think it's a perfect fit. I do want to talk about what you've learned in that experience so far, but for the people that remember you fondly from the thriving metropolis that is Farm Vegas, what do you remember most fondly about this community? You spent a lot of time here, buddy. So what do you remember fondly about it looking back now?
Oh, there's so much that I remember fondly about Farmville. You know, we got there and we were young and we didn't know anybody, and there were so many people that just immediately adopted us and accepted us. I mean, you know, there was a gap in there, but I spent 12 years at Longwood, and something that always truly impressed me about Longwood and Farmville. I mean, the students that I got to work with were truly phenomenal, and they had big ideas, and they pursued those ideas. And you know, for me, as someone who spent the vast majority of that time, I did teach a few classes, but as someone who spent the vast majority of that time as someone they didn't really have to interact with if they didn't want to, the sheer number of those students who did seek me out continually, both within comm studies and theater and, you know, music. I did a lot of work with music students when I was doing the AV and production stuff. And so, you know, I have lots of fond memories about working with students in that capacity. And, you know, and something that I should definitely throw out there, and I don't know if this is the place in the podcast to throw it out there or if it would be better fit somewhere else, you know, especially when I got into comm studies, and it was not present in other places, but when I got into comm studies, I mean, I was never the staff member that lived in the basement, right? I was part of the team, and I got to have a voice, and I got to help make decisions that impacted the way we all did our jobs. And it I am forever grateful for that opportunity, because that is a I feel like that is probably a fairly unique experience that not a lot of people in the kind of position that I was in get to have.
Obviously, your work continues to have, I think, a permanent and a positive legacy and impact on our campus. Yes, people still know who Dr. Awesome is here on campus, but I'm glad that you're doing it there at ECU. So you're in year two as a professor. So you did get to see a lot of the I guess you would call it like the non-glamorous side of instruction, or being facultying, as Dr. Hossman likes to say. So you got to see the other part of facultying. What is reality versus maybe some of your expectation now that you're in year two?
Well, the I mentioned how much I enjoyed the students that sought me out and wanted to work with me and do stuff.
Oh,
It is
but they're all like that, aren't they all like?
Well,
I'm
they
just
are.
I'm just
They are,
kidding. I'm
but
just kidding.
it's
I'm just kidding.
the
They're
difference
not all
between
like that is my joke. Sorry about it. They're not all like that.
the difference between doing what I was doing at Longwood specifically, and what I'm doing here, is that it's really easy to form connections with students and help them sort issues out and solve problems and be creative when you're like I used to refer to myself at Longwood, talking about, if you're the father, you being who I'm talking about here, if you're
Sure.
like the father of the program, and Naomi is the mother of the program, then there's Clint over here.
God, I hope she doesn't listen to this. She's the
He's the
cool aunt, all right? She's the cool aunt. Don't you age that woman. Anyway,
well, but that's how I'm like. Then there's Clint over here. He's the cool drunk uncle.
I'm Dr. Awesome. I'm Uncle Awesome, baby.
Yeah, and because I did help students do things, and I did work through them, but I never had to grade anything. I mean, there were a few times that I did, but
Yeah,
for the
you
most part,
you taught, but right, you could pass that torch most often,
but
right?
most often, I mean, I wasn't the person grading it, so it was just, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. Oh, here we could do this, and like do the thing. But that level of involvement in every single project that students are doing is way easier to achieve when you're not also the one assigning it, grading it, and dealing with all of the different wheels that are spinning in different
Yep.
directions.
Yep.
And even so, like my very first semester here, I taught I taught short film, which was a really cool experience, and I taught radio and podcast, which I think was my most successful class of my first semester here, and I taught AR and VR production. Teaching a AR and VR production class sounds like a lot of fun, and I think it could be a lot of fun. Uh,
Could be.
you, you
Not the
know,
way I did it.
university firewalls, when you're using free software because you don't want students to have to buy anything, makes work mind-numbingly difficult.
True.
And then I also wound up teaching motion graphics, which is one of our graphic design courses, which definitely within my wheelhouse of things that I do and am capable of. But as someone who is very much a video person, I approach motion graphics in a very different way than a graphic designer would.
Right.
And
And those are all really intensive classes that you just described.
yes, and so yeah, I think honestly the biggest thing I've learned about facultying, thank you, Alec, would be it is serious, and you have to take it seriously, but you can't take it personally. Because if you take it personally, every time a student is late, or every time a student doesn't show up to class, or they don't do the work that they're capable of, if you take all of that personally as an insult to you, you're going to burn out, and and you won't be a good, and you not only will you get burnt out emotionally, you also won't be a good teacher anymore.
Mm.
And so
This is very true. This is good advice.
finding the balancing, walking that tightrope and balancing between, this is serious, and you have to take it seriously. The academic rigor, right? Finding the balance between academic rigor and your expectations for professionalism and all of that, and also pushing that continually, but having to understand that students won't always meet that goal. And when they don't meet it, they're not intentionally insulting you. They're people too, right? And things happen, and not everyone does their best all of the time. And I don't know. It always feels very personal, but it's not.
Right. It is and it isn't, right? And so what, you're in semester three, I suppose, right? Technically, right?
Yes,
So
semester three.
may you never lose the passion of trying to build that personal connection without taking it personally, right? I guess I'm in year 18. And two of those semesters were sabbaticals, which I'm sure anyone who were to come across this would want to remind you, me, and anyone else of that. So I can't claim, 37 or 36, 35, whatever semesters under my belt, but I know exactly what you mean, especially when you're starting in a job like that, that because you're working with individuals can feel very personal. So I think that's really good advice. How have you tried to maintain your level of, well, one of the things you're known for is your creativity, right? It's really hard to move from the fun drunk uncle, right, who can kind of steer the ship wherever he wants to and then hand the keys over. You don't have that luxury now, right? So you've got to remain creative while doing it within this structure of the course and the curriculum. I've seen you do that really well, but I can imagine that's been a unique kind of learning experience for you in a different place.
It it has been, and I think I imagine that what I'm about to say will be how it is for forever, right? In perpetuity.
Oh, this seems like a bold statement. I'm ready.
Figuring out how to maintain creativity and all of that, and like being engaged with students and making sure that things are continually moving forward and all of that, and maintaining the enthusiasm for it, that is an ongoing process.
Yeah, that is an art. That is an art. Yes.
And it is an ever that is an ever evolving thing that I have to continually be thinking about. And you know, one of the challenging things in maintaining that creativity, and which, not only for my own sake but also for the students' sake, making sure that they're getting the experiences they need to go out into the world and be productive and do the thing. I have definitely learned for my like for my intro to audio class. I feel like I've got that, for at least for now. I mean, it will continue to evolve and change, but I've got that nailed down, at least for the moment, in a sense that the students find it interesting, and because they find it interesting, they do the work, and then I continue to find it interesting. Our first project in intro to audio, we do soundscapes, which are inherently very creative, right? It's the idea of building an immersive audio environment based on a still image.
Yeah.
And they
And
have
those
to
are
do
really fun.
they
Those are
have
really
they
fun.
yeah. They have to do three of them for their first project. And the reason I start with soundscapes is because for all of my editing and production classes, I try and give them the foundation of, here's how you use this software that we're going to be working with for the rest of your career at this institution, right? And so I give them this, on its face, fairly simple assignment that has some criteria they have to meet. But the whole purpose of it is you have to learn how to mix volume, you have to learn how to add different sound effects and different layers, and you have to learn how to pan and do all of those things. And while it's not something that is inherently complicated, I think students learn through repetition, and so by making them do three separate
Yeah,
versions
three.
of the same
Mhm.
thing, um, they have to go through and they have to process that and they internalize it. So that then by the time we get to our second project, which you may remember because I definitely had digital editing do it as well. I am a huge fan of giving students children's books.
Oh, I'm doing I stole that assignment from you. And yeah, spoiler alert to the students in the spring 2026 section of digital editing with me. You will be doing a children's book presentation, reading, recording, whatever you want to call it, with elements, music, all of it.
It's a cool project, especially following the soundscape
Right,
because it's literally it's now it's instead of just building a soundscape, you are building a long form soundscape that can change over time, and we're also adding in the human voice, right?
right.
And so then we do a narrative bio interview, or which would, I mean, you could argue that it's like a feature bio, but I don't make them really follow journalistic standards for the narrative bio. It's just
I'm just gonna cover my ears for that part. I'm just, no,
well,
I'm
I
joking.
make them
I'm
do
joking. It's
feature
fine. I'm
stories too.
teasing.
Don't get me wrong.
I'm teasing.
But then it's so then we add in two human voices and it's a conversation, right?
Right.
And so we just continue building on concepts, and then I do make them do a proper feature
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because then you have to add in not only the human voices, but you have to get nat sound, you have to get all of the different things. And then their final project that I have them do, which I am waiting with bated breath to listen to all of these on, or listen to and watch all of these on Tuesday of next week for their final presentations. I have them do Foley sound.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
I give them a selection of clips, but they're free to choose their own as well, and they have to do a solid minute and a half of video that they then go through and add all of the sound effects for. They add music to it. They do all the different stuff. I in intro to audio, I allow them to use like stock sounds and stuff like that. But when we come to audio engineering later, they have to actually record their own sounds.
That's cool.
Um, and I feel like for that class, that's a good balance of skills and creativity. And so that kind of keeps them engaged and interested. Then, but there's also been classes that really don't work out the way I want them to, and I'm going to have to be very creative to figure out how to make them work
And
in a more effective way.
but you're still early in it. I mean, anyone who's taught for a while knows that you have to teach that class. And no student ever really wants to hear this, especially if they're the guinea pigs early on, right? But you've got to teach that class once, twice, thrice to really get a sense of what's going to work, what's in my wheelhouse, what can they do to again to your point about meeting academic rigor, what can they do to meet the rigor of this course, and hopefully exceed my expectations. I need to kind of adjust those things. I tweak things all the time, but you're right. It takes a lot of experience to build those. I know you're capable of doing it, but I can remember the first few times I taught stuff, and I go back and look at some of those assignments now, and I'm like, man, those wouldn't work now. They wouldn't have worked 5 years ago. There's a reason why I made all those changes, and obviously the vast majority of them are wholesale gone at this
Yeah.
point in my career. But I'm with you on that. I remember being in your shoes though, and constantly tweaking things and just hoping to see what stuck to the wall. You know what I mean?
I do, and so I taught documentary production this semester, and speaking of things that didn't go the way I thought they would.
That's a
Um,
hard course, man.
well,
You know,
it is,
hey,
and
hey, 18 years. You know how many times I've taught a documentary related course?
twice,
One-
once.
Just once.
Well,
Just once. That's it.
and I and I,
Thanks,
I
Stouffer.
and I modeled the course very much after digital storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Because we call it digital storytelling, but it was a documentary based class.
Yep.
So they had certain benchmarks they had to hit throughout the semester, but all they've done for this semester is work on this one big massive project.
Mm.
Uh, that
This will be the screenshot that we use for teasing the episode of you just head in hand, like,
I
oh
mean,
yeah.
there's going to be some good work that comes out of the class. There's going to be it's all very creative, and none
Yeah,
of
they're all
it's
going to see this episode, so you better be real nice, Dr. Awesome.
like I said, it's all very creative and it's I've got nothing bad to say about it. I think without it having been a it's not something that we necessarily build to as part of our curriculum.
Right.
It's
That's
a
hard.
it's an elective class.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that's
so
really hard. That's really hard.
and as an elective class, even as like a 3,000 level or 4,000 level senior class, right? Um, it doesn't have a lot of the prereqs that I would really expect it to have, but if it had those prereqs, it also would never fill properly, right?
Right.
So I totally understand why it is the way it is. But coming in with a this is your capstone course kind of mentality that I got from doing digital storytelling at Longwood was the wrong approach.
But you tried though. You tried though.
Yeah, I mean, I did try. And again, I've got nothing bad to say about any of the students. They all worked very, very
Right.
diligently and very hard. It just, without having everyone at that level of like, I've climbed the scaffolding and I've put my next boards on, right? Like full on make me a 12-minute documentary might have been a bit much. That was a bit much.
You're a little bit too aggressive. I to so that people will watch this and they'll be like, poor Clint. No, he's just bashing on himself this entire time, and that's not fair. I'll share a story for just some content balance for you, so that anyone who's watching this doesn't think that it's just Clint who struggles. When I first started teaching, I was teaching production and writing courses. And to your point, my standard was okay, I just came from the professional world. If I'm not willing to put this on in print or on screen, then it's an F. Like that, those were my standards that I'd been taught and I'd been drilled through my education, and mostly through that in my professional experience was like, oh, it wouldn't air, it wouldn't publish, it wouldn't run, so it is trash, right? And so to your point about your transcript, my grade book was basically BF. Nothing was an A, right? I was really struggling to kind of find that balance. And another Farmville famous Longwood legend and Dr. Bill Stewart came to me, and it really probably was my first, it might have been my second semester. I'm trying to think about the classes I was teaching, probably my second semester. And I was teaching those intensive courses, and he was like, I'm here, and it's probably around the time of class registration. So it was around the time of advising mid-semester. And he said, a lot of your students are coming and talking to me, and I'm here to tell you that you're screwing up. And I was like, no, no. I mean, I'm holding them to this standard. And
I
he
am
said,
preparing them for the professional world.
right. But to your point, he said they've never had any experience to get them to this level. And the fact that you haven't taught them how to get to that level is totally your responsibility and fault. And you better fix it. And he said, I'm not telling you that you got to change the rigor of your class. I'm not telling you that I don't want you to hold them to professional standards. He said, I want you to do all of those things. I just want you to do it better. And you better do it right now. I was like, okay. So for all of my memories, that forever for Bill will be, warm, fuzzy, and full of love and care. We had a really tough conversation that afternoon that to your point, I took it obviously very personally. And I really struggled with that feedback. And I did definitely go to sleep that night like, curse you, students. Am I going to be able to walk in the next day and not try to figure out who went to Dr. Stewart? But in the end, you have to humble yourself to the work, and then kind of figure out, all right, how do we lift this experience and get something out of it? But I wasn't able to make a full course correction in 6 weeks time.
Yeah.
I needed to come back to it a semester, a year later. I remember that very fondly. I know that you'll have the capacity to do that too if this documentary class, this elective class, if it ever sees the light of day again. We
Oh,
shall see.
I'm pretty passionate about doing it again at some point.
Good.
We're trying to right now. We're trying to alternate in our fall semester. We're trying to alternate offering either documentary production or short film production. So they have the option to do the more in-depth sort of at least hopefully true work, right? And the and the more creative whatever you want to do.
I think there's only a small number of people watching that would appreciate this next question, but so we'll try to keep it quick. But there's a lot more to facultying than teaching. I hope you're dealing with the other side of those things well. There's service work, there's scholarship, there's all that fun stuff. And
It's
you're
true.
still young in that process.
I am still young in it, and I'm very fortunate that at ECU they don't in your first year you don't have to be on any committees or do anything. But I am
But
now
you're in year two, buddy.
but I'm in year two, and so I am now a proud member of the General Education Committee.
Nice.
Um,
People at Longwood would call that civite, right? Civite. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. we, we do not have Civite has not made it this far west.
Just general. We're just general and core at this point.
Yep, and that's been an interesting experience because I teach all of my intro level classes wind up fulfilling a gen ed credit, like a gen ed elective credit.
Right.
And so the vast majority of my students are like my students, my majors, our majors. But I always have in, all of my intro level classes, I have one random, I'm a psychology major. And you took,
Yep.
okay, cool.
Yep. Thanks for being
Um,
here.
and I did learn through being on the on the general education committee that any class that is listed as a gen ed has a required gen ed assignment that you're supposed to do, which I'm glad I know now, so I can include those in all future.
Yeah, I taught, and I don't think this will get me fired now. But I taught writing intensive classes for I think 7 years before someone told me they required rough drafts, and I was like, "Well, the world doesn't do rough drafts. Well, that's stupid." And so I basically said, "Well, when they were doing the first assignment, I consider that first assignment a draft for the second assignment. What do you think about that?" And they're like, "No, it's it's going to be a draft within the same writing assignment." And I was like, "Oh, right, okay,
Gotcha.
right."
Um,
I dig that. So you have to have a general education assignment associated with those
yes.
outcomes. Great.
Which
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm on the gen ed committee because I know that now.
Box checked. No problem.
And I'm also, so that's sort of that's the committee that I'm on for the institution, but I also I do a lot of work helping out our so ECU does not have a theater program. It's not a curricular theater program, but we do a couple of shows a year, and we have other things coming through our venue, and so there's a guy here who when I started his official title was technical director, but now he's like I think his title is director of events.
Mm.
Um, his name is Jamie Davis, and I help Jamie out a lot, and he, that's a two-way street, and we definitely are both putting that on our, uh, here at ECU, your yearly review is called your FPE, your Faculty Performance Evaluation, and
Oh,
both Jamie and I are, every time we do something for one another, like, yes, I
write
helped
that
Jamie
down.
do that.
Write that
um,
down. No,
I am.
Jamie's lucky to have you. That's awesome.
And we have a lot of fun working together. And I also, then on sort of on the community side of things, 'cause that's something else that not everyone knows about being a faculty member is that when they ask for your service in your yearly review or when you're going up for tenure, they don't just want what you did for the university. They want you to be a valuable member of your community.
Yes, at Longwood, that needs to be associated with your talents and discipline and expertise all tied in together, right? My favorite example of that is I listed all this community service, and basically it was like, yeah, but see, you're a professor of communication studies, so unless it's connected to your skill set there, you need to just remove all of that. So I've been turning that in for 10 years. So whoops.
Well, and I am fortunate that my current like community service, I am pledging. I'm not a full member yet. Um, for
Are we
the
still allowed to use that word? Go
I
ahead.
for the Ada Arts Council.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I attended my first meeting of that last night, actually, and I've also been doing some stuff with Act Two, which is our local community theater. I ran the light board and helped them focus and do stuff for their last production, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which
That's
was
awesome. I know our folks here in Farmville at Waterworks Theater will be happy to know you're still doing related work there in Ada. That's great.
so yeah. I mean, and having to not do those things last year was I mean, it made my first year easier in some respect. I mean, I know it did because it was a couple less things I had to do.
Right.
Um, because everyone drowns their first year, so not having to do those things was nice. But now I'm into it, and not doing the, I will say not doing like being on a committee or anything like that last year. I outside of a very few people, I mean, Jamie Davis, who I mentioned, and a couple others, I really didn't branch out and form any kind of relationship with anyone on campus outside of my
Sure.
department. And so doing that now has enabled me to form some more relationships and has sort of put me on a direction to make the connections I need to make to help us keep growing and make sure that we are still you know, the arts in general are struggling at a lot of institutions. So making sure that I know what's going on so that I can kind of help keep us in a sort of vital sector of the institution, if you will, um, has been very helpful. And thankfully, for the moment, we have a fairly strong program. I mean, it's not huge or anything, but we have right at 100 majors in ADMC, and it's split about half and half between art and design and mass comm. But so 100 majors. That's for 100 majors for a school of 3,500 to 4,000 in East Central Oklahoma. That's not doing too bad, right? I mean,
Nope.
we're doing okay. So I just got to make sure that I say I like I'm the only one doing this, but just
Right.
forming those relationships so that I know what's going on so that we can continue to be doing pretty okay.
Yep, and I know we talked really openly as colleagues and friends, and certainly within our department about how important that was for us and is for us to do within our department here too. It's the enrollment and the program-related enrollment issue at the higher education level nationwide is a true concern. So to your point, if whatever we're doing, it better be viable. More than likely should have some career skill focus. Doesn't mean it has to be occupational solely in nature, but it should be something that's helping a student feel that they're more prepared for the postgraduate work world or for postgraduate education, and recognizing the hard truth that we are competing with other programs, not only within our institution, but any other competing institution in the state or in our discipline, whatever. Those harsh realities are there, and it's something that, again, we talked a lot about. We did a lot of peer and competitor research and a lot of discussions about tweaking our discipline, which is why that digital storytelling and documentary course exists. Like we did a total curriculum overhaul whenever Stowe first started here, and I think that has led to significant improvements in the student experience. And obviously, that's not the only one. We did it on the PR side too. I don't want to make anyone else feel that we're ignoring them. We've made a lot of changes here, but that's great. I'm glad that you're taking that mindset with you there too, because that, for a lot of folks in higher education, I would say particularly with faculty, traditionally faculty have been accused of not having that collaborative or community minded or big picture minded idea or concept, right? That they
Sure.
recognize that we can't just keep drilling the same thing that we've done. We're going to have to collaborate and we're going to have to innovate or we'll die on the vine.
Yeah,
I'm
rotate the
sure I'm
crops a
sure
little
you're
bit.
seeing that now.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah, it's and again on a podcast called Academ-ish, the future of higher ed is very much murky at this point, and so trying to navigate that in the most collaborative way possible is definitely probably the best choice. How are things going there? I mean, what is the general, sort of atmosphere of comm studies? I mean, Longwood in general, but specifically comm studies. I mean, how are things going? Is it still, I mean, I know it is still bustling and thriving, but I mean, as you said, there's been a lot of changes that have been made, and I'm sure, I mean, I've only been gone for, a year and a half now, but I'm sure there have been some changes in that time, and
Sure. Yeah, I think anyone who knows you, who knows me, who's got a lot of experience maybe with our department or within Longwood, would be thrilled to know the answer to that question. I will say that the Comm Studies department, and I'm no longer serving as department chair, so anything that went wrong in the last 6 years can be placed at my feet. We had 3 years, I think, in a row where we were the largest graduating class within the Cole College of Arts and Sciences. So and I'm not a nice person all the time. I like to say I hope that I'm a good guy, but I'm not always a nice guy. But I used to like to hold on to the convocation program, and I still do, and just kind of count the number of our majors that are in there because we're extremely proud of our graduation, our retention rate, and the work that we do in recruitment. So that is healthy and well. I think we had, based on kind of the COVID year in graduation and some 4 or 5 year graduation rates associated with that. I think this year, this coming year, or maybe last year is either this May or this upcoming May where we won't finish first within the college. But that I think is again collectively a testament to the faculty in our department collectively who just really are doing their best to keep that academic rigor while also working with students and helping them and making sure our course rotation and the classes that we offer allow them to graduate. So in that way, it's good. We're constantly thinking and looking at changes, and we've obviously been having a lot of conversations about where we put AI in our curriculum, how we're adapting to that. We
I
haven't made
loathe
any other.
AI.
Well, yeah. Well, we haven't made a lot of other massive curriculum changes. We've added some classes. We're in the middle of another program review, so institutionally, it's always a fun time. But what I will say is, overall, it's strong and it's moving in the right direction. And to your point earlier, I think within higher education, that's a blessing. I hope that our university administration would be able to look at what we're doing here and say it's working there. The students are doing well. They're being recognized for their work. They're getting employed, right? They're professionally prepared. Their alumni care about the program, and that's a forward-thinking faculty group. I would hope that they would see that. Nothing's perfect. Nothing ever was or ever will be.
I think year 4 of the new server. How's it holding up?
So now the subset of people in our podcast audience who understand what you're talking about is this big. But we had a server blow up in famous form, if I remember correctly, over fall break, right? If I remember correctly,
Right
you
before
came
fall break.
back. You came, or I thought it was Will Johnson, who the student then, now graduate, who came back and tried to log in and couldn't log in, and then we had to use the magic and wizardry of buying something off of the internet, thanks to Ben Jones, and then plugging that CD, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
into the system to reboot everything, and then just kind of drag it along.
We had to boot the server in Linux to give it a prompt to start in Windows.
So we are currently doing, hold on, let me find wood to knock on. Everything's working right now. We do live in the constant fear of the wrong drop of water going onto the wrong piece of equipment or the wrong update going through to something. But no, everything's in working order. But as you know, with anyone who's teaching media or content creation of any way, shape, or form, the evolution of technology is just constant, and our students rightfully wear and tear our equipment, and so we're always replacing stuff. You know how that goes, but you left it in a good place. It continues to be in a good place. Really hoping that after saying that, that didn't just jinx it. This is the part of the podcast that I really love and that I think we need more of in the world. And so, Academ-ish, we're going to call it joyish. So, Dr. Awesome, Professor Wright, whichever you wish to be called in the moment, tell us something that is bringing joy and light into your life.
Wow. It's not hard to answer because there's so few things. It's hard to answer because there's a lot of things that bring me joy in my life. I mean, you know, let's start here. My family is happy, healthy, and we're all doing well and seem to be moving in a forward direction. We didn't in fact move at the beginning of school for the fourth year in a row this year, so my children seem to like me much more than they did this time last year, which is very gratifying for me. uh, I've we just had our and I mean, I don't know. It brings me joy. We just had our 16th wedding anniversary, my wife and I. We've
Happy
been married for
anniversary.
16
That's
years.
awesome.
We've been together for 19 years. So literally, I've my entire adult life has been spent with Pam, and I haven't run her off yet. I do wake up with flop sweats occasionally, fearing that she's gonna someday realize what a loser I actually am. But she hasn't yet, and that brings me joy. I am tired and I am often frustrated, and it is a forever learning and growing experience. But I'm also, I'm very professionally fulfilled right now. It's took me a long time to figure out what I really wanted to do with my life, and then once I figured it out, it took me a minute to kind of get on that path directly. But this is not the job in Florida was one of those. This is the dream job. It's not the dream anymore. This is the job I want, and it's the job I have, and I'm very very happy with it. We talked about creativity earlier. I've got a couple of things that are sort of happening and going on right now that I can't quite share yet because they're not public. But I've you know been getting to do some professional work and things like that are really cool, that are separate from my institutional work. And we've got electricity, running water, and food on the table. There's a lot of things to be joyous about. And I also, through the gift of a friend, I was gifted an Xbox One, which I know is now two consoles behind, right?
It still counts. It still counts.
But we were rocking the 360 before that, so and I got to play. And this sounds so silly to say that it brings me joy, but it really did bring me joy. I got to play Outer Worlds, which
Nice.
was it's a silly game, but it was so much fun to just be chaos personified in a world that had no consequences to the actual world.
That's awesome. No, I recently beat Ghost of Yote, and it's awesome. No judgment here, man. No judgment here. That's awesome. Well, I'm grateful for all of that, and I'm excited to see that creative adventure that you were talking about that'll go public soon. I encourage people to lean in and learn more about that as you throw that out in the world. I know whatever it is, Clint, it'll be great. You have always made good content. Anyone who knows who Dr. Awesome is has seen it. I encourage people to go find your work out there as well. What I love about you is you've always had these mantras. You can see one behind you. You should be working harder, be a sponge or die. All of the other things. You have always been, to me, a person who's grounded in perspective. To your point about what brings me joy and light, my wife and I oftentimes just look around and say, "Hey, we live in a house. This is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Should we stream something on the internet we didn't have 2 years ago? That's pretty cool, right?" So
Yeah.
I think perspective is everything. So, from my heart, Clint, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have had to get caught up with you, and I'm thankful for you contributing to Academish. Part of this adventure is fully inspired by you. You have never been afraid to put work out there and to just trust yourself, and definitely. I'm doing that. Won't ever do it as well as you do it. But screw you. I'm doing my best. All right.
I
God,
think you're underselling yourself a bit, but I
stop
appreciate that.
judging me. No, I appreciate it. No, truly. I thought of you when I was creating this thing, and I was like, man, I need to be bold like Dr. Awesome. So thank you. Thank
Well,
you
that
for
brings me joy. Thank you.
Yes, good. I appreciate it, as you do to me. So thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate getting caught up, and I know that ECU is lucky to have you, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It was very wonderful getting to talk to you again, like face to face, sort of.
It's perfect. Let's do it again soon. Yeah?
Yes.
My sincere thanks to my beloved friend, Dr. Awesome Clint Wright. And yes, you can find his content on YouTube under Dr. Awesome, Dr. Awesome. Go there, check out his content. You'll learn something while having fun along the way. Nothing says edutainment like Dr. Awesome. Go check it out. All my love to the Wright family out there in God's country. Please remember what Clint said during our joyous segment, right? Keep a grounded perspective while actively chasing your dreams. Find the fun and celebrate the small stuff. Please follow our socials to get all the details on when the next episode drops. I promise it won't take the same amount of time it took this time. Feel free to drop a comment or feedback and know from my heart that it's appreciated. Thank you for joining me in the adventure that is Academ-ish. I'm Jeff Halliday, and as you prepare for the remainder of your day, or whatever lies ahead of you tomorrow, here's a famous quote that I love to steal and use. You can't cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water. We'll see you next time.